Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Laila Tov, Zohurim Tovim, depending on where you are. This is Carrie, and I wanted to talk today about redemption. It's a conversation that we've been having in our house as questions of what redemption or what does redeem really look like and mean. So I wanted to share some of this with you so that we can begin to take a look at this and decide what we think about it. Let's take a look at the definition. So in Bible Hub, we see this term in Scripture called kinsman redeemer, and we see this through the book of Ruth. And here we say that it's the next of kin to redeem, according to Oriental law of kinship, to be the next of kin, and as such to buy back a relative's property, marry his widow, etc. And I understand that because I've studied as to why the Hebrews would do what they would do in order to keep the inheritance and the land within the family from generation to generation. But I believe that it has something greater for us to look at today. When I looked at the definition of redemption, we have this. It's an action of saving or being saved from sin, error, or evil, which we know is a construct through Christianity, a thing that saves someone from error or evil. And then we have the action of regaining or gaining possession of something in exchange for payment or a clearing of debt, which the sin debt, within a Christian perspective, I understand that. And then the archaic portion would be the action of buying one's freedom if they were a slave. And I really kind of want to focus on that. We are in a system that we have become a slave to the system. And we are a slave because of our beast ego nature. So this beast system that we are within, the reason why it exists is because we have the beast ego nature within us that thrives and lives off of fear and chaos. It's meant to protect us in some ways so that we would be afraid of something that might bring us harm. But on the other side of that, it can cause us to do things very beast-like in times of scarcity, because the beast is attached to our flesh and it only lives as and in our flesh suit. We are eternal, so when we pass away, we continue to live. The only thing that passes away is our flesh, because we're eternal. The beast ego is attached to flesh, and it controls us because it wants survival at all cost, and it doesn't care what it does in order to have survival. Hopefully that makes sense. But what I'm talking about is a little bit different than this when we actually take a look at the Hebrew word itself for redemption. We can go into Bible Hub here, and it talks about redemption, perhaps kin, and the word is Gimel, Aleph, Lamed, Hey. We're going to come back to that, and I'm going to explain the letters here. As we go down a little bit further to find out what the Strong's definition is, it talks about redemption, and by implication, a relationship. So redemption could be the right or the object, but more than not, it's based on relationships. And if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see that these are all the scriptures that have this word in this form, Gimel, Aleph, Lamed, Hey. These are all the verses that we see this in within the Old Testament, because as I'm looking at Hebrew, it's only through the Old Testament. Bible Hub recognizes the Greek, but doesn't have what I need for Aramaic. So one of the ways to get a good idea about what a word is saying is take a look at all the times that the occurrence is used so that you can dig out and have a fuller meaning of it. But I do want to point this out to you. This is the root of this is from Ga'al. So at the root, it being static in nature, it's full of potential, and it needs to be activated upon by the addition or deletions of letters. And the root of it is to redeem, according to the Oriental law of kinship, to be the next of kin is as such to buy back a relative's property, marry his widow, etc. Very similar to the definition that we saw in its first movement, having the hey added to it. But that's the point that I want to bring forth. We went from the root to having a word that has a hey on the suffix side. And the hey is, in a paleo form, means behold, a revelation. And it is also pertaining to the Father's teaching. So in this word, it is the Spirit of Father and His teaching that is going to reveal something to you. Well, that's fine. So this has to do with redemption. Well, what is it revealing to us? What it is revealing to us is that the gimel means to walk or to carry, to walk towards water. It also means camel. It can mean to lift up. And so this is a gathering and walking to the water. The original form of gimel in the paleo just was the word gam. It had a lamed added to it later. So gathering to the water, and what is the water doing? When the lamed was added, it then meant that it is gathering, walking to the water and gathering so you can become a teaching shepherd who has the staff of authority. So we're already seeing that here, that this is about what we do, what we are in gathering, that we're walking to the living water teachings. And then right smack dab in the middle, we have Aleph Lamed, which is the Hebrew word for El. This means that we have a strong leader or strength, and then we have Lamed, which is authority, shepherd, staff, goading, and urging. So the strong leader who has authority, it's the word God. So what we can see about this, that redemption, well, let me back up here. The Aleph also represents the number one. And many times you've heard me refer in other videos that Yeshua's statement, I and my Father are one, meant that they were unified as one. There was a knowledge that there was a oneness between them. And if any of you have listened to the Law of One teachings, where Ra is communicating to this to us, the Law of One is that we are all of oneness. We are the same. I am you, you and me. We are just different points of attention. And when we know this, that we are one, we become a teaching shepherd of this oneness. And what is this word? God. It means that we become one with God. So we've got an element of gathering to the waters in order for us to become a teacher of light, a teaching shepherd, that is connected to the strong leaders who have authority, that are one with God, who then will be revealed. That's why the hey is on the suffix side of us. Sorry, highlighting is not working very well. So they are going to be revealed. So the redemption that I see, this has nothing to do with sin. This doesn't have anything to do with what the definition was in redemption of being saved from sin, error, or evil. That is a Christian construct. Or even like the clearing of a debt. I mean, that's another thing that you've redeemed something, so you took something to a pawn shop and you got money for it and you came back with money to redeem it so you could take it back. That's totally cool with that. What I'm wanting to clarify is the Christian concept of what we see as redemption. What we are talking about in redemption is that the beast ego nature tells us that we are separated from the oneness with the Father, source, because we are unified. We went through the veil of forgetting. We don't remember this. The beast ego then attached itself to us during the fall in consciousness where we don't remember. And now it tells us that we are separated. So what I am saying here is that redemption is the process of us becoming one again with Source and Father through a revelation that we are all one. And when we eradicate the beast ego nature, through the perfection of love. The fullness of the perfection of love is us realizing that we are all one. Hence why we have this point of revelation, that through the Father's teaching and through His Spirit, it will be revealed to us that we are the strong leaders that have authority, that we are one with El, and that we had to gather first towards the water and grab a hold of these living water teachings of Mother and Father through the languages in order to produce the nature in us that we would be gathered as the teaching shepherds. And when all of this happens, this is the fullness of redemption. So I just wanted to share this with you today because if we don't have the right perception of what redemption is based on what the language is telling us, then we go through a lesser narrative through the Christian construct of the English Bible, and we don't actually see or experience the fullness of what redemption is. Because unfortunately, Yahshua did amazing work, and I'm not negating anything that he did, because without him, we wouldn't be able to have the fullness of this revelation and access to the Father's teaching, because you can only come to the Father through Yahshua, who was an embodiment of Mother's teaching. So it's through Mother's teaching that allows you to come to Father. And that's what Yahshua was telling us. He was pointing us the way so that we could become the Word made flesh, just as He was, through the sacred writings, through the letters of light, and becoming and being revealed as the strong authority so that we could say, I and my Father are one. It has nothing to do with sin. It has nothing to do with errors of any sort, because as most of us know in the spiritual journey, we learn from the things that didn't go so well for us. And yes, you could consider them an error, but if we learn from it, was it really an error? Or was it just a teaching catalyst that would propel us to go, you know what, maybe that wasn't the best decision. I don't think I'm going to do that again, and reorient ourselves. So the process of redemption is us becoming one again with Father, with Source, realizing that we are all connected. And in that place, then we are what? We've been redeemed and we've been brought back into the family of one. The strong leaders who have authority, who have become one with El, Echad, unified, that then go and reveal this concept, the Hay. We then go and reveal the Hay, the revelation that we are all one as teaching shepherds. And that is because we actually become the Gimel, because not only did we gather the water, we gathered at the water, but our nature is now that we lift this up. We are actually lifting up what? We are lifting up the concept of God to become one with the teaching shepherd that came before us, who is one with God. It's pretty astounding when you look at this. And the reason why I'm sharing this too is because we have been abused for such a long time and beat ourselves up through the Christian translation of the English narrative that we're missing the whole point of this when the Hebrew and the Aramaic really explains this process quite beautifully to us. Now, this was just a surface glance of this word itself, because there's a lot more that I could say, because again, every symbol has a spelling to it in symbols, a symbol that makes up symbols that make up symbols. I call them constituent letters. So like the Gimel is a Gimel Mem Lamed. That all has information. But I don't want to go too deep. I just think it's important that we restructure the way that we think about these words, because as a man thinks, so he is. So if we can recreate the dialogue that we agree to, then it can change our frequency and we can begin to shed light on these truths to be able to set people free from the bondage that they are held hostage to in these Christian English translations, that they keep falling off the truck or they keep doing these things because it's been considered sin, when in actuality sin just means that you've missed the mark. And it also, the original concept of sin had to do with our DNA, having errors in our DNA coding system. So it's been twisted quite a bit, and I just want to set people free from it. The only judge that is out there is ourselves. A creator that creates us is one of unconditional love. He can't judge his own creation. That is why we judge ourselves. And we have standards of measurement that now we can see through Mother's teaching and Father's teaching both, that allows us to reorient ourselves so that we can be walking to the water, gathering what we need, so that we can understand about what a strong leader or a strong authority is over us until we become it. Because the Aleph also means one who has been taught, and so therefore they teach, they've been instructed, they've been yoked, they've been tamed, they have the thousandfold Christ anointing as a teaching shepherd who has the living water teachings and has become a door of revelation for others to be able to walk through the inner man to do their work. So there's a lot going on here, and I hope that didn't come across as being confusing to you. But the redemption process is definitely different than the concept that has been presented to us through the Christian Foundation is presented. So if you have any questions, this might have been clear as mud because this is just off the cuff today that I wanted to share. If you need to, ask me questions. Let's go ahead and drill down on this some more. And I appreciate your comments, and I really appreciate your questions because it helps sharpen me as well. So I hope this finds you well. Thanks for watching, and shalom, shalom.